Like that? That's new.
That's new, right?
Yeah. I thought, these days everyone's very privacy concerned. I just want to really make it clear that, what's going on. All right, everyone, let's get the show started. Welcome to Office Hours. Today is December 18th, 2019, and my name is Eric Osterman. I'll be leading the conversation. I'm the CEO and founder of Cloud Posse. We're a DevOps accelerator. We help companies own their infrastructure in record time by building it for you and showing you the ropes. For those of you new to the call, the format of this call is very informal. My goal is to get your questions answered. Feel free to unmute yourself at any time if you want to jump in and participate. We host these calls every week. We'll automatically post a video recording of this session to the Office Hours channel, as well as follow up with an email so you can share it with your team. I've been slacking on those emails lately, though, so ping me if you don't get the message. If you want to share something private, just ask, and we can temporarily suspend the recording. With that said, let's kick this off. I have prepared some talking points as usual. These are things that have come up throughout the week. We don't have to cover these things. These are just if there are not enough questions to get answered today. So first thing is that, Martin on our team, also in Germany there somewhere, shared a pretty cool little module he's been working on, which is how you can deploy a Bastion in AWS that has zero exposed ports to the outside world. And you can do this using the new features of the SSM, Sessions Manager for Shell. Also, in other news, the Nginx headquarters in Moscow were raided. Kind of interesting drama in our industry to unfold 15 years after the company was started. Istio plans to deprecate Helm-based installations. I'm really not liking that. I hope this is not a trend. This makes me think of the Java installer we've had to put up with for a couple decades here. And lastly, I want to cover something that we briefly touched on last week with the announcement that the official Helm chart repositories are going away. What is a alternative pattern that you can use that doesn't mean you have to host your own chart registry? And I want to talk about that too. But before we cover these in more detail, anybody have any questions we can get answered? Could be on Terraform, Kubernetes, DevOps in general, job search. I don't know, anything interesting, or any
this is
projects.
Adam Cruz. Towards the end, I'd like to talk a little bit about pull request process and how to be able to get some of bug fixes and changes contributed to some of the Cloud Posse modules.
Okay, yeah, sure. Well, we can jump in and talk about that right away. First thing, have you already opened something and you're frustrated that we aren't moving fast enough? Because that happens too sometimes because we get a lot of freaking pull requests.
Yeah, I have 2 open right now, and I was just kind of curious of what the expectations are for how long it should take to get reviewed, or how long I should be patient, kind of stuff.
Don't feel bashful pinging us in Slack to prioritize. It's kind of like we follow sometimes the path of least resistance. Yeah. So if you nag us on the Slack team, I'll have Andre or myself or Igor or one of the guys look over your pull request, and we'll try and expedite it. So for starters, can you post your PR to the Office Hours channel? And I'll call attention to it.
Yeah, absolutely.
See if we can review that. Cool.
I got one question. Have you guys read this? Hey, Dale here.
Place. If anybody afterwards wants to help me troubleshoot a cert man, I'm doing installing GitLab on a Kubernetes cluster, and cert manager is giving me a pain in the ass. So I can send you guys some cookies if you want to talk about it later. Anyway.
Okay.
I read an article yesterday regarding Alphabet's move towards trying to be number 1 or number 2 in the cloud space.
Yeah.
With their timeline. It seemed to actually have a response that they may end up just pulling out altogether.
I know. I don't think it was good PR for Google. on their cloud product. Yeah, it's great. They want to be number one or number two, but Google has a horrible track record of, I mean, and thank you for bringing this up. This should totally be a talking point. But yeah, Google has a horrible track record as it comes to pulling out of products. We were using Google Hire, for example, and less than a year after we signed up and got everything in there, they pulled the plug on that, like so many other things. So I would not put it past them to just say, hey, we're exiting the cloud business. Sorry, we didn't become number one or two. We only want to be number one or two. It's your fault. You should have made us number one or two. And yeah.
Like to just pull out of GCP? What the? Seriously?
I don't know, but I mean, so they are a distant. I read the article or something that said like their cloud business maybe generates somewhere in like the $8 billion per year range, when Amazon does that per quarter, something like that. So I mean, yeah, there's a big gap, but it's still. I mean, does that make it not even worth it for them? That's amazing.
Yeah, because I see where Google does some things very well, and AWS does some things very well as well, but it's still a portion of the market, and you can actually grow it once they can actually do other things even better than Amazon. I think what Amazon have been doing really is almost like the Facebook model. That they look at the trends, see what people are doing, and then build a service around it, and then they push that out, and
Yeah.
it's a repeat each time.
Yeah.
You know?
I would love to see the Amazon formula. I bet they have something pretty well defined internally about how they identify SaaS, scope out, build requirements, prototype. I mean, it's a machine inside of Amazon how they're pumping out these services. But yeah, to your point, I mean, I think a lot of Google services I'm envious of. The UX is a lot better. The performance is a heck of a lot faster. I mean, GKE compared to EKS, I mean, night and day difference in terms of usability and power and updates. So,
yeah, I must say, even like after filing a couple GTB bugs, they are super quick to fix them. Like I was using Google Functions on a project. They fixed the bug in like, I don't know, 2 weeks or something. That wasn't really even important.
wow.
So even like this relationship between like, it was not even a big company that was working on this Google project. It was like a startup. And they fixed it in like 2 weeks. And I just feel like the relationship is really a lot better between Google and its customers, even though a lot of people say Google sucks at customer management. But
I think they've turned a corner on that. I'm a Google G Suite user and a Google Fi customer. Their mobile offering here in the US, and it's the best experience of any product that I have. Also, their Google Wi-Fi, I use that as well, and that's been a phenomenal experience working with their customer support. I talked to somebody within about 5 minutes of calling up. They're technical, they know what they're talking about. Just not having to navigate 25 menu options and sit on hold for 45, 50 minutes. That's great.
Yeah, I had that experience just recently with the guy at CodeFresh that I talked to.
A good experience, it sounds like.
Yeah,
Okay,
cool. You get sat and you get shown a demo, and sometimes it's somebody who's just been trained how to do the demo, and you try to deviate at all, and they're like, I don't know what I'm doing. But this guy was like, doing all kinds of stuff, and showing me. I was asking all kinds of questions, and he was going around and showing me different things, and we were totally off script. And I really appreciated that,
That's
I
very
actually
cool.
had a technical guy in front of me.
That is very cool. Do you know who it was by any chance?
I do. I'll come back to that. I'll go find his name.
Yeah, cool. I'm glad that was a positive.
This is Blaze. I can, if anybody's interested, I can speak to sort of how things happen at Google internally.
Yeah, sure.
Having worked there for 4 years. They're extremely good at doing stuff in scale. In other words, things that they do in scale, they take very seriously. So if you need them to do something that might be somehow personal or unique to you, you're screwed. It's just never going to happen.
Yeah.
But if you need something that is, in a sense, part of their existing workflow, they stay up late at night trying to make that happen as quickly as possible because they want to reduce the friction.
Yeah. So basically, if they see that this affects N million people, then they will go do it.
Yes. And I'll talk a little bit about how they can get away with that. The other thing is that they have there's basically like two different categories of services in terms of support, in terms of internal IT support or SRE support. There's the stuff that's funded, or I should say, the stuff that has what they call a revenue stream. And so there's a billing ID for it. And those things then get different tiers of support internally depending on how much they bill for. And then there's everything else. So basically, if in their internal accounting, they don't have a revenue stream associated with a service, it could disappear at any minute and they wouldn't give a rat's ass. Nobody would cry.
Yeah,
So,
that's the harsh.
It's very harsh. It's totally, yeah. Now the other thing is that the way they can get away with this is they do a lot of blue-green deployments. And that's basically something that I would love to bring up in this group at some point, maybe not today, but how we can go about establishing quality gates and running canary bills. So at any given time, there will be multiple versions of Gmail running at once, for example. And the versions might be like unbelievably similar to each other, but they then start to collect telemetry. They compare the metrics of the new whatever.
Well, this is what the feature flagging is for, right? Like launch darkly or flagger or flipped.
Except it's more about having multiple, in other words, feature flagging. Yes, except you're comparing the flagged instances, the flag pods with the non-flagged pods, and they're all running simultaneously.
Right. So the beauty with things like Flagger is that that telemetry is built in, so you can see how that's performing for you, and then you can tie that in with Prometheus and all your other reporting dashboards. So I guess what you're monitoring or measuring is going to depend on the product. But yeah, the tooling for that is there. I guess there's no good demos for how you should do it.
Yeah, and then I think the ultimate secret, I mean, it's not really a secret, it's just they have the discipline of making sure that whenever they design something, they include the diagnostic criteria as part of the design.
Yeah.
So if you're writing a piece of software and it's going to do something, then something in the world should change as a result of that piece of software.
That's a good point.
As a designer, you have to say, this is going to affect these metrics, and these are the thresholds that are considered good. And then, so like 0 might be bad, for example. And so you want to tell people in the spec, 0 is bad, because then that automatically gets plugged into all the things that could be bad.
Yeah, I totally agree in theory with that. I think few teams have the rigor to be able to actually carry that out, and the foundation to truly report on that. Like, yeah, but what you're saying, I like, the idea that before you make a decision, you decide up front kind of what are your expectations that this is going to do, and then by deploying it, seeing that change happen, did it meet or exceed or not at all, or did it meet or exceed your expectations or worse?
Something in kind of a similar vein that my team has been going through and is that we started saying, because we get people that say, hey, can you, create this little app for us, as like a internal research and development type thing. But, we don't want you to spend, a lot of time and money on it, so don't do a pipeline, don't do any tests, just build it, And so what we started saying was, no. If you don't want a pipeline, if you don't want any tests, it's not important enough for you, we're not going to do it. You know, so like we have this new philosophy that, you know, everything gets a pipeline.
Yeah.
Nothing doesn't get a pipeline.
Pipeline-driven development.
Yeah, and it's so this video that I watched from Uncle Bob. If you, anybody know Uncle Bob Martin from he's one of the founders of Agile, the Agile Manifesto. He did a video and he started talking about how, you know, you can't go to your business and ask, can I write tests? Can I build a pipeline? You know, because what you're doing there is you're trying to shift the risk to them.
Yeah.
And they don't know that stuff. You know, that's you. You know that stuff. It's your professional, you know, risk to take. You know, so he said they're just always going to say no. You know, so you have to shift that mindset, and you take on the risk of, you know, saying, I need to write, I will write tests, you know, as part of my professional ethics, you know, or whatever, for this is the way I operate.
Yeah.
I thought that was really powerful.
That is powerful. Thank you for sharing that. I like that.
Do you have a link to the video? Can you share it in Slack?
Yeah, please share that.
Yeah, I will. I'll share it.
And just to add some context, or not context, but add some reaction to what you're saying, because we all know and have been there how if you didn't do that and you go along with doing it, next thing you know, you get a notification. So we're going live with the service next week, and now it's your responsibility to manage the uptime. Yet none of the legwork was done to make sure that it was a reliable service from the get-go. So yeah. Cool. So anybody have any, has anybody first of all played around with the systems manager shell? We haven't done it. We use mostly Teleport. So I'm curious if anybody's using the systems manager shell and what their experience has been.
I have not, but I do want to hear a little bit more about Teleport and how you use it.
Mm-hmm.
As well, and how you manage like the authentications and so on.
Gotcha. Yeah, we can certainly talk about that a little bit. I have somewhere in my work so if you go to I go to Cloud Posse startups. So here, I think under screenshots, here I have some screenshots of what the architecture looks like for Teleport, which is helpful because it is a legit, like, enterprise-grade application in terms of complexity and architecture. Not because they're trying to be difficult, but because it's solving a difficult problem. So we just gotta let this load here for a second. It's gonna be a little bit slower since I'm logged in and this is not a cached session. In the meantime, for everyone else, Teleport is a product by a company called Gravitational. They actually just raised like $30 million, so they're doing pretty well. If you go to github.com/gravitational/teleport, it's a open source or open core project. Most of the functionality is in the open source version, but things like single sign-on with Okta or anything other than GitHub requires a license to do that. All right, so let's see. Get this loaded. Let's see. Here is screenshots of, so. Teleport. So yeah, so just like the cool thing with Teleport is you can replay sessions like with full-on YouTube style replay. So that's what we see right here. It's just a replay of a session. But the architecture is, here we go. Let's see. Is this big enough? Can you guys see this? Maybe I need to make it a little bit bigger.
I think you were good before.
There we go. All right. So there are these three components, basically: the auth service, the proxy service, and then the node service. So the node service is this service over here. And what you do is you deploy on all of your servers, you deploy this node service, and that kind of replaces SSHD. So technically, it can work together with OpenSSH, or it can replace OpenSSH. Then you have the proxy service. So the proxy service here is deployed, as you can see, multiple times. However, it works in like a tiered architecture. So basically, the proxy service is your modern day bastion in Teleport. So you expose one of your proxies like this, and you set that behind an ELB with TLS and your ACM certs like tele.cadex.io in this case, and that connects here. So when you connect publicly, either using the command line tool, using a CLI tool called TSH, or you can connect over the web like this, you're actually connecting to the proxy service here. Then then you have, say, your clusters, and you have multiple clusters, and this would be an example of one cluster here. But let's say you have 5 or 10 or whatever clusters. All of these deploy the same stack of services. So they have an auth service, they have the proxy service, and then they have the node service running on all the nodes. You typically run like 1 or 2 proxy services for HA, 1 or 2 auth services for HA in each cluster, and then a node service on each node. So what's going on here is that when these services come online, the proxy service comes online and tunnels out of your cluster to your centralized proxy service. This ensures that all of your clusters don't need to be publicly accessible because they tunnel out through the firewall. Then you have your auth service. So it uses a PKI infrastructure where each auth service has its own certificate that's been signed by the central CA, and then that establishes the trust so that this auth service here can handle issuing the short-lived certificates for clients on SSH. So let's see here. I know enough to be dangerous. I'm not deeply technical in Teleport because it is a sophisticated product. Other things to point out here is that each service here writes to a DynamoDB table, its events. So you can have an event stream of what's going on there, and then you can tie that in with lambdas, like lambdas that send Slack notifications. And then all the sessions, these are your TTY sessions. Those ship out to an encrypted S3 bucket. So a lot of companies have tried SSH logging, and they will send those logs to a service like Sumo Logic, not to single anyone out here. And that's cool from like one perspective, discoverability and having it all in one place. But it's not really effective if people are using TTY sessions, like going into Vim or using Top or running anything that does like ANSI codes to reset the cursor position and all that stuff. Because you're not going to see what's going on when you look in those regular log files. That's why you want YouTube-style playback, and that's why they send a binary log of the session of what's happening to this encrypted S3 bucket. So deploying this. So there's the way we've deployed, and there's the official way to deploy Teleport. And there are pros and cons with both strategy. So let me talk about the official way of deploying Teleport. So the official way of deploying Teleport is that you should not deploy it inside of Kubernetes it should be deployed at a layer below your container management platform. So basically on the host OS. And that means like, deploying it so it runs under systemd. And the reason for that is that this is how you triage issues that could be even affecting Kubernetes itself. So by deploying it a layer underneath Kubernetes, this gives you the escape hatch you need to triage things going wrong with your cluster, for example, under Kubernetes. The downside is that introduces more traditional config management strategies or dependency on that, or you need to roll your own images with Packer or something that have those binaries built in. We've kind of taken a compromise to this, where at Cloud Posse we deploy this as a Helm chart, and that allows us to use the same pipelines and tooling that we have for everything else we do. And we deploy the auth service that way, the proxy service that way, using Helm charts. And that also means that Kubernetes can manage the uptime and monitoring of those services. It means we can leverage Prometheus with all the built-in monitoring we already have in Kubernetes without adding anything custom. So there's a lot of other benefits to deploying this also inside of Kubernetes. If you go to Cloud Posse's GitHub, so github.com/cloudposse/helm files, you will find our Helm file for deploying Teleport under Kubernetes. But keep in mind that Teleport, like so many other things, don't just run self-contained under Kubernetes. They have backing services that they need. And that's why if you go to GitHub Cloud Posse and search for the keyword Teleport under our repos, you'll find the Terraform module that has the backing services for Teleport. So Teleport. Here. So yeah, this is the module that you might be interested in if you're going to deploy this. So this deploys the S3 bucket following best practices and the DynamoDB table following best practices. So that makes everything else capable of being deployed basically inside of Kubernetes. Let's see what else are Docker image. Don't use this Docker image. It's not been updated, as you can see. I'm going to share this to this channel. Were there any other specific things you wanted to see? So that was just a high-level overview. I can go deeper or more technical if there's something in particular you were hoping to see on that.
Yeah, so pretty much you would manage everyone from like a single sign-on?
Yes. Okay, cool. So yeah, we deploy it with the enterprise offering, and the enterprise offering enables G Suite integration, for example, or Okta integration, and then you map. Then you use. Let's see here how easy this is to show. If we go to, so we have our own charts for Teleport. That we manage. These are different from the official charts. Let's see here.
There was more to that question.
So yeah, Teleport Enterprise Auth, Teleport Enterprise Proxy. So in here, let's see, Enterprise Auth values. I think we provide some example.
So I'm making the assumption that once I provide access to a user, I can also restrict them to specific resources.
Yeah, so you map basically the role that is passed through the SAML, so when they authenticate, it passes their role, and then you can map that role to a role inside a Teleport, and you can configure all the roles you want. So in Teleport, you can configure this role allows root access to this cluster, or this role allows root access to all clusters. Now you couldn't make it more fine-grained like read-only, because that read-only is a concept that only exists inside of the operating system itself, and SSH doesn't govern that. So you can control what SSH accounts they can on the node. I'm trying to remember. See, I have not been doing the deployment of Teleport. This is Jeremy on our team. He's the expert at Teleport. So I'm going to have to plead ignorance here on how that role mapping is set up. I believe it's deployed through a config map somewhere. Let's see here. Go to Helm files. Would that be helpful? Have you given more thought how you plan to deploy teleport?
Not yet. I'm actually just trying to.
Okay, here we go. So we're deploying it with Helm file, and then we define these templates here, which are the configuration formats of the chart. There's SAML entity descriptor. Yeah. I guess we don't have any examples of those in the public thing here. Yeah, sorry. No, we don't have a well-documented explanation of how that works right now. But if, yeah, I can ping Jeremy for some more of that information if it comes up. Cool. Any other questions? Sorry, Dale, I couldn't answer that question precisely to get you unblocked. Any other questions?
I think that was it regarding that bit.
Yeah. Or anyone else? Any questions? All right. Let's see. What were some other talking points? Anyone have any commentary on the whole Nginx raid that happened in Moscow?
They sent out an email. I heard everything kind of worked out okay. Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah, there was an email that Nginx sent out to all their users or contributors or something.
Okay.
Customers, yeah.
Okay, that's cool. I got to look that up. I'm sure.
They were like, full disclosure, this is what happened, but nobody was arrested, blah, blah, blah.
Okay.
So.
Oh, nobody was arrested. I was thinking 2 guys were arrested.
Well, in the original reporting, it said they were brought in. Like the 2 founders of Nginx were brought in. That's what it said in the original. But, maybe that was just a hearsay or secondhand and not confirmed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I found it. I'll post the tweet.
Yeah, that'd be cool. Given how much of the internet is underpinned by this, I was worried about it.
I'll post a tweet that I found that talks that posts a screenshot of the email.
Okay. Yeah, we always strive to be transparent with you, our valued customers, and we're committed to keeping you updated on them. Okay, law enforcement. All right, yeah, so they were just brought in for questioning the founders. They were not technically arrested. They were brought in for intimidation. All right.
Could something like this happen in the US?
What was that?
Could something like this happen in the US? Like, because of copyright infringement, people get arrested?
I mean, if they want to, they could do whatever the hell they want,
Yeah,
Okay.
it depends.
Would it happen in the U.S.? No, probably not. But like the Patriot Act and stuff, I mean, they could lock you away forever and you'll never get seen again.
And and if it's a Hollywood movie, they might bust down your door with a SWAT team because you might be a violent offender or something. I don't know.
I mean, this whole thing reminded me of the Pirate Bay raid in 2008, I think it was, where they raided the data center.
Mm-hmm.
Or was it later? I think 2007, 2008, something like that. So, yeah, I mean, in the EU, it could happen, I think.
Yeah.
Like, people could get arrested for it.
Remember Kim.com and the raid on his mansion in New Zealand? That was pretty insane. With one, like paramilitary or whatever.
I heard they did the same thing with his mom as well. They actually raided her.
Oh, they did? Kim.com's mom?
Yep.
Huh? I made it personal. Yeah. So I don't know how many of you are using Istio. We've started using it with a customer. That project was delayed because we kept on waiting for the Helm chart to become more stable. And we also saw that they started a new Istio installer for Helm, a new project repo. But then Ryan in our community called out this thing to my attention, which kind of bummed me out. I don't know if it's true or not. They said that they're going to be deprecating the Helm installation approach. So I get it as a developer, kind of why they're doing it. And, you know, they're frustrated with some of those limitations, but I don't like it in terms of a trend. This makes me feel like the modern day Java installer, where you can't just apt-get install, you know, the regular Java. You have to go sign up, give your email, download some jar, curl it, or pipe it into Bash, agree to some terms of service, all this other stuff. Is this the future of Istio? I hope not.
Well, and that's not even the case anymore. I mean, I could just go say, you know, brew install OpenJDK now.
Yeah, well, with OpenJDK, right? But that's not the Sun version. So I'm hoping that there'll be an about face on this decision, because I do like installing everything in a consistent manner using Helm right now.
I don't have a huge problem with it if it's providing other like if to do it with Helm required more than just, you know, Helm install Istio. If it required more than that, then it makes sense to wrap it with something so that it can just be, you know, Istio-ctl install Istio, right? I mean, you want to make it as easy as possible for your users.
Yes, you do want to make it as easy as possible for your users, but sometimes these are at odds with each other. We had this conversation last week about Helm and how I think you actually brought up that you are disappointed that a lot of the Helm charts are insecure by design, are insecure out of the box. And I think their goal there is to make them as easily installable as possible, which is at odds at making it as operationalized, productionized as possible. So yeah.
I mean, the people behind Istio in particular tend to buck the norms anyway. So like another perfect example is you will not find an Istio channel in the Kubernetes Slack. You know, they have their own. So that's just the way they operate.
But that's the same for FluentD and Linkerd and all the others. I mean, that's not Istio in specific.
Yeah.
So,
I wonder if
I mean, for me, the only issue that I see is like, how do you make this replicatable across multiple clusters? Like, for example, you have a dev cluster, you want to install Istio on it. I mean, calling a CLI command works, but is it like the way to go for now?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's basically like using the AWS CLI command, right? And we all know better to not use the AWS CLI command to define our infrastructure, right? That's why we have tools like Terraform. That's why we have tools like Helm. So how do we, I guess I'll be okay with it, but then they need to provide a declarative way for me to describe the state of my Istio and make it if they can make it like Istio apply and Istio destroy, and then I guess I'll be okay with it. That said, I just so like
it doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel right.
Yeah, something doesn't feel right, and like so, you know, we've been a big proponent of Helmfile, and Helmfile isn't Terraform, but that's why I'm so happy today that there's a Helmfile provider now that's helping us integrate Helmfile into our Terraform workflows. So does that mean we're going to need to have a Istio provider for Terraform, maybe, or something like that? Maybe that's, I don't know.
I mean, I would like to know the reasoning why they did it. I mean, is it something that really is like they cannot solve it with Helm, and Helm says we don't want to solve your use case? I mean, the only thing that I could think about is CRDs that are kind of an issue.
Yeah, so CRDs are kind of poorly supported under Helm due to, if somebody can explain it better than me, that go for it. It's basically like the race condition between the CRD getting deployed with the containers coming online and waiting for those resources to be functional isn't supported by Helm. So you get these errors that like this resource doesn't exist. Well, it's really just in the process of being created. I think that's the gist of it. I've definitely encountered this problem. The way we worked around it is we just, I think
file hook.
Exactly.
Yep.
Exactly. Helm file hooks with calling kubectl apply, right? Or on the command line.
Yeah, there's just some issues when you try to have a resource of a specific type and that type doesn't exist yet, or it's in the process of being registered. There's something going on, and it's annoying, especially with Cert Manager.
Yeah, and there's so many that have their custom CRDs these days. Yeah, so I know this affects Mumosho as well, and I know he's been contributing some PRs to fix some of these problems, but I don't know if the root cause has truly been addressed.
I thought I saw something in the changelog a while ago, like a few days ago, about that.
Oh, really? Oh, cool.
I'll see if I can find it.
Yeah, please share to office hours if you see that.
Istio-CTL manifest apply is what you're going to want.
Oh, nice. Okay, so they are doing something along those lines.
Yeah, they'd be stupid not to.
Yeah. Cool. And then, one of the last things I wanted to cover briefly was I know many of you are using Helm and could be impacted by the shutdown or the eventual deprecation of the official charts repo. There are a lot of charts out there, and I don't necessarily want to have to figure out where their chart registry is, or make sure that it works or is up to date. Very often, you'll find the chart registry, you'll find the chart, but they haven't pushed the latest package up. And you want to use it. So we've been, there are a few of these plugins out there that add the Git protocol support to Helm. So you can just use like a git : / scheme. This is the best one though that I found. And I forget his non-GitHub name, but he is, he's in SuiteOps as well, and a Helm file user. So this project together with Helm file works really well. You can literally point to projects anywhere on GitHub. So let me see if I find git : / in this repository, find an example of using this. Yeah, so here's an example of the URL of the chart, of the chart repository, and we're pointing straight to a GitHub repository and pinning it to a commit. So this combined with Helm file makes it pretty awesome because you can really deploy from anywhere. You can also deploy from the local file system if you want to with Helm file.
Works with Helm 3?
Good question. Haven't tested it yet. We'll be doing more Helm 3 stuff in our next engagement.
I've been playing with Helm 3 on Helm file.
How's it working for you, Matthew?
I'm in the initial development phase, so I haven't deployed anything, but it looks like it's working just fine.
Okay.
I've got fine templating, linting, everything's going fine.
Cool.
Same here. Works great.
Okay, perfect. Andrew, are you using Helm file as well now, or?
Andrew? Yep. So we're working on We're working on coming up with repeatable, like what we talked about last week. We're taking the Terraform root modules approach to Helm deployments as well. So we've been asked to come up with, a highly repeatable way to deploy GitLab or Jenkins or SonarQube. Just spit them out all over the place. And each time they get deployed, they need to be fully production ready, And that's like the root modules approach, where this is our root module, and the root module in this case is going to be a Helm file.
Cool. Very
and
cool.
It's coming together.
Have any of you Helm file users kicked the tires on the Helm file provider? No.
I'm not.
Yeah, we've been working with it a little bit. It'll work just fine if you're not using Terraform Cloud, but if you're using Terraform Cloud, there's some challenges there.
The idea is to have everything from the cluster to the apps that are on the cluster all in Terraform. Is that it?
Yeah, for at least everything up until like up through your shared services. Not necessarily using it for application deploys, but using it for things like GitLab deployment, for example. To use Andrew's example, we don't use GitLab, but to use that to deploy, like maybe cert manager to the cluster. We define the cert managers, all that stuff in Helm file because that's how we have it today, and then use Terraform to call that. I know it's just to tie it. It's because of the dependency ordering, so you can tie it all together more easily. But yeah, it is layers on layers, a layer two.
Is it?
Yeah, and I think that could be a good next step that would be easily, something that would build upon like those root module Helm files that we're doing now, because you would just call the Helm file.
Yeah.
We did something. So I work for a government systems integrator, and so the government has been for the last year or so putting out their RFPs with tech challenges like hackathon style things, where your team has to go into their office and they sit you all down and they hand you a piece of paper on it with 10 user stories or whatever and say, okay, you have 6 hours, go. And they hand you keys to an empty AWS account, and they expect a running app, with full infrastructure, at the end. So you have to come in with your infrastructure as code and everything all ready to go. So we built like what you were talking about with Terraform and Helmsman. And it worked pretty well. It was not very customizable. It would do its one thing and it did it fine, but like if you decided, well, I don't need Jenkins, I'm going to use something else instead, too bad, you're getting Jenkins. So our work that we're doing now is kind of expanding on that into, coming up with ways to say, all right, you want a Kubernetes cluster? Where do you want it? You want it in AWS? You want it in Azure? And then, okay, you've got your Kubernetes cluster. What do you want in your Kubernetes cluster? Do you want, GitLab? Do you want Jenkins? Do you want cert manager? Blah, 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 and that's kind of where.
I might have to ask you a little bit more about that project later on.
And I have a question on that as well. I think more in general, with using RBAC with AWS and IAM, have you guys done that successfully and with ease?
Yeah, I mean, it's right now, we haven't done anything super fancy with it. It's when you stand up EKS, you can map users or roles to roles inside Kubernetes. So I can say anyone who has assumed this role in IAM when they log into Kubernetes, they are this role in Kubernetes. So we have a role in IAM called Kubernetes master, and when they log into Kubernetes, they get assigned cluster admin, right?
Yeah. So
it works fine.
Are you just managing everything on the IAM side and not with the AWS auth config map? Or do you also have to add them to that config map as well?
Yeah, the AWS auth config map, you need to add what the role name is.
Okay, but not the user, just the role that they're assuming.
No, just the role. You don't need to, I mean, you can map users, but we think that's dumb, like, you know, because you want to map the role,
Right.
And then later on in IAM, you map, you know, who is allowed to assume that role.
So yeah, so you put them in, for example, within a group that actually has that role attached to it. Is that correct?
Something like that, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But all right, so do you then have to provide them the kube config with that role assumption as well?
No, we give them the ability to generate the kube config. So AWS EKS update kube config will generate the kube config.
With the role associated to that user?
It's a flag. It's a -- role ARN. Here, I'll link it.
Sounds good. Yes, please, if you can. That's where I got a bit hung up with allowing them to just use the AWS command line tool.
Yeah, we started out passing the kube config around all over the place and quickly realized that was a horrible way to do it.
Yeah.
Has anyone been using the new Fargate on EKS?
I haven't, but it looks interesting.
I'm not even sure what to expect by using.
So
I think
we have the Terraform module for it, which prototypes and tests it, and you can look at that. There's a lot of limitations to using it, and I think it's a little bit early probably to use it.
Like that's one of the implementations that I like that GCP has done with their GKE. It takes care of a lot of the just management headaches, and I just can start deploying with my applications. With AWS, it's like I'm actually building my own house, and I like there are things I'm going to actually forget about, or some dependencies that just get overlooked, But yeah, because like with an RBAC, for example, I can implement it very quickly with GKE without an issue. With AWS, it's a little bit more work.
Yeah, everything's just a little harder. Like with GKE, there's just a checkbox to have Istio, right? I mean, it's that kind of stuff.
Let's see here.
Yeah, if you can share that link with me, I'd appreciate it.
Here,
put it in the office hours.
Cool. Nice.
So yeah, here's our module, and here's the first pull request. And Andre links to the some of the limitations here. But just to emphasize what those limitations are, I just copy and pasted it in here so you can kind of see what some of those are. So it doesn't support network load balancers right now apparently. What are some other ones? Yeah, you can't run daemon sets. Daemon set doesn't really make sense anymore, I guess, since there's no traditional concept of a node in that sense.
So what if you decide to use like Datadog and you need to deploy it in all the nodes?
Well, yeah, but in Fargate,
it's if you need to use Datadog, Fargate is not for you, right? It's for the people who are running temporary workloads.
It looks like something you could just run jobs on, like.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a good summary. So yeah,
if I were so we run Jenkins in Kubernetes now, and we run ephemeral worker pods. Like I could easily see us using something like Fargate to run our ephemeral worker pods, without having to worry about the underlying cluster, because they don't need any of that stuff. They don't need a load balancer. They don't need, they're just compute. It's CPU and RAM. That's all they need.
And that looks like all that Fargate can provide.
Cool. Well, we're coming up at the end here. Are there any other questions to get answered before we wrap things up for today? Cool. Well, I'll take that as a no. All right, everyone. Looks like we reached the end of the hour, and that's going to wrap things up for today. Thanks for sharing. I learned a bunch of new things today, as usual. As always, we'll post a recording of this in the Office Hours channel. Feel free to share that with your team. See you guys same time, same place next week. Adios.
Yeah, have a good one.
Bye.
See ya.
Bye.
Bye-bye.